Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses, both of you, for being here today. I got a lot to cover, so I want to get right into it. My legislation, one of the bills being considered today, the Strengthening American Nuclear Competitiveness Act, has a number of very important reforms, one of which is the extension of Price-Anderson Act liability protections that both industry and regulators have agreed has been in existence and is today and is essential for the build-out of America's civilian nuclear industry ever since the 1950s. Mr. Goff, first, can you explain to our subcommittee your thoughts on the importance of Price-Anderson protections for maintaining and expanding America's nuclear industry, and can you explain why it would be important to extend these well into the future?
Yes, I think it is very important to the nuclear industry to have that still, to have that assurance as far as the coverage and indemnification for any.
Why is it important?
Well, I should add, it's important for both industry and for the Department of Energy, too. Our work is also covered under Price-Anderson as well, to make sure, again, that we have appropriate coverage if there is some unthinkable accident kind of that occurs in the future. Luckily, we have never had to have that,
Yeah, just kind of in layman's terms, the original intent of Price-Anderson was because insurance companies didn't know how to set limits and liability on this stuff, right? And people were not, businesses, industry, they were not going to invest in nuclear programs without some assurance that they wouldn't just be wiped out in the unfortunate instance of an event, right?
Yeah, and I think that is still the case. Insurance companies don't necessarily know how to continue to handle that. Even though we have issues with countries necessarily knowing how to handle that as well.
Okay, let me stay with you, Mr. Goff. In our hearing last month with the Nuclear Regulatory Commissioners, we discussed the portion of my legislation having to do with, in my view, outdated bans on commercial nuclear investment coming from entities in allied friendly countries. My bill would end that prohibition, which currently could hold back critical investments that could move the U.S. nuclear industry forward. When I asked NRCC Chairman Hansen about this last month, he said he thinks there is, quote, a real opportunity to perhaps make changes. Do you agree? What are your thoughts on this from a DOE perspective?
You're saying bans from our allied countries?
Yeah. Mine lifts that ban. So he said he agrees that there may be time for change. What do you think?
For us to export to certain countries?
No, for investments from friendly allied countries in the United States.
I think we want to make sure we still have control of those assets in the United States and make sure they have appropriate control, but I think there is some potential opportunity to open up how much investment you can have in nuclear power plants.
All right. Now, Mr. Dorman, let me go to you. In my legislation, there are a couple of provisions where we are looking for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to do a deep dive and report back to us here in Congress some of the unique licensing issues for some of the nuclear power applications of the future. I'm particularly interested not only in advanced techniques for speeding up the manufacturing of small modular reactors and micro reactors, but also the innovative uses for these reactors in manufacturing, perhaps one day being used to heat and power huge industrial facilities, data centers, and other energy-intensive industries. So, Mr. Dorman, is NRC looking into these things now? And how is the commission preparing for the licensing process for new manufacturing techniques and non-electric applications in the future?
Thank you, Congressman. We are looking at those issues. As you know, the X-Energy application that we expect in the next year is anticipated to provide process heat for a Dow facility. We are also, the staff is looking at microreactors and particularly the factory manufacture and transport of microreactors and is developing a paper for the commission on that subject. So we'd be happy to also report to the committee.
Great. Well, as one that is very interested in America reasserting its leadership role in commercial, civilian, nuclear energy, both here and abroad, because we know it has geopolitical implications. I'm glad to hear the answers from both of you today. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.